That you have a car?
When it hit me.
Yeah. So what'd you do? Did you just Uber or?
But the cool thing is, my Uber driver is Santa Claus.
Oh, really? Like
Like actual
Whitebeard?
Santa
Oh,
Claus.
really? Santa Claus? I'm gonna give Tim like 50. There he is. 10 seconds. Yeah. Okay, we're going to call to order this June 27th, 2019 Board of Education meeting, and I'm going to start with Pledge of Allegiance. And since it is the throes of summer, we do not have the normal crowd of kids, so I think Alan is going to lead us in the pledge.
That's correct. If you will, please stand. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, so before we get into the meeting, it's that time where we do a board reorganization. And what that means is following each board election, state law requires us to organize as a board and elect the officers. Because of the way the timing of the election happened, the election wasn't certified until after the May meeting, so we are actually organizing in this June meeting. But before I do, Tracy, I'm going to turn the floor over to her because she has an announcement she'd like to make.
This may take me a minute to get through. I'm going to read it to you. It has been an honor and a pleasure to be able to serve our great district as a member of the Fayetteville Board of Education since 2012. We at Fayetteville Public Schools are so blessed to have such amazing teachers, staff, and administrators to lead our district and make it such a great educational opportunity. Teachers, hands down, are the hands and feet of this school district, and they work tirelessly to educate and mold our children each and every day. We are so fortunate to have teachers that are not only passionate about their subject and educating our children, but they are also dedicated to help mold our children into caring and empathetic human beings. I have such respect for our teachers, and I will miss working with you on matters that we all have such a passion for to make our district an even better place for Fayetteville kids and families. Dr. Colbert and leadership, I have enjoyed working with you over the years, and thank you so much for your dedicated work. You too care about what is best for Fayetteville schools, and most of all, what is best for kids. That's what it's all about. To those of you that are not behind the scenes of administration, you might not understand what a difficult job this is. They not only have to do their day-to-day work to keep the school running, but they have a tremendous amount of pressure and responsibility that goes way beyond most jobs I know. I applaud you and I appreciate your dedication. To the community, you have an amazing school board. You may not realize it, but you do. Sometimes the public only has an opportunity to see the board when the difficult issue is at hand or a conflict arises. That's unfortunate. While we not always agree on everything as a board, nor should we all have our own voice, but the bottom line is we are all passionate about education and truly want what is best for our district. I can't imagine serving with any different people than I have over my term. I've learned from each and every one of you, and I appreciate your dedication to our district. Board service is difficult. While most people only see once a month Thursday meetings, countless hours are put in behind the scenes. Not only do we put in the hours, but our families are right there with us. They are affected as well, and their understanding of our time commitments to board service is a service in itself. And the pay's not that great. With that, I'm in a season of life where my personal and family commitments need to take precedence over any other commitments, and I will need to step down as a board member. My last day of service will be June 30th. Thank you for all what you have done to make Fayetteville Public Schools such a great place to work, serve, and attend. And with that, I would like to make a motion to nominate the following slate of officers: Justin Eichman, President; Nika Waitsman, Vice President; and Megan Hurley, Secretary.
I'll second.
Okay, so we have a motion and second, and with the board's leave, we might go ahead and make the vote, and then like a few things to say, if that's okay. So without a motion and second, is there any discussion from the board? Okay, all those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say no. Okay, the motion passes 7-0. So I guess before we jump in, maybe there's a few changes to the agenda, and one of those will be at the end to discuss a board vacancy. Another one is an issue that Dr. Colbert has asked to place on the on the agenda. So we're going to have an item G that is going to be deal with the scoreboard at Harmon Playfield. And then let's do an item H at the very end of old business, that is discussion of the vacancy process. So I don't know if there's an objection from the board. I don't really think we need a formal vote on this, but is everybody okay with that? Okay. So if I could, I'm going to come to the front for just 1 second. Yeah, do you mind, Ellen? I think I've heard Tracy, been on the board with you for, it seems like the entire time I've been on the board, because you came in just a year or so after I was on the board, and you and I have heard several times where a board member has stepped down or said their last goodbye at a meeting, and they're always very emotional and personal, and I think that's a testament to the feelings and to the dedication, to the intensity that we all bring to the role. And this one was especially emotional, and I could feel it. One of the things that many people may not recognize is that you really get to know people when you serve on a board with them. Kind of the good, bad, and the ugly. And one of the very nice things that I love about our community is that the people you serve with, you really come to like and love and respect. And that is certainly with you. And from personally with me, I feel like we've over the years have become very good friends, and I've always enjoyed our time talking. And you are. There are no shrinking violets on this board, and you are the least of the shrinking violets on this board. You have a passion for your beliefs. I think you have a deep feeling for right and wrong. I think you have a love for public education, and those are qualities that you want in spades in these type of positions. So you will be greatly missed by all of us. So in doing so here, we would like to be able to present you with a few items from the district and from the board, and to have this day be a recognition of your service to our district. You have really an amazing career ahead of you. You have 2 wonderful children who have come through and made our district very proud in many ways, and we look forward to being in touch and having your support out there, because we know you do have our back. So I don't know if anybody else has anything to add, but I would like to present these to Tracy, and then maybe get a group photo with one last time. So.
I echo those comments, Justin. I agree. It is kind of it has been a bonding experience, and I haven't been on the board with you, Tracy, as long as Justin has, but I sure have enjoyed getting to know you as a person, and I just have a ton of respect for your passion and conviction. And in this case, I think this is just another example of you just following that strong conviction, and so I appreciate you being true to that, as you always have been. So we're going to miss having you around.
Okay.
I'm supposed to say, I remember you when you were just this one. Not been that long, but from day one. And I appreciate, especially at certain times of the year, budget cycles and such, your careful attention. And I often felt if you said, this one makes some sense from a financial standpoint, or our work with bond issues and such, I always appreciated that you paid closer attention. I think we all pay attention, but you understood it better than I do. So I appreciate that gift you brought to us, and appreciate that you've got cool ride ahead, and we all want tours of the neat place at Tyson that you go to every day.
More than welcome to come.
All right. Well, thank you, Tracy.
Okay. All right.
I'll just add in, April and I've known you since, gosh, way before I was on board, and always hugely appreciated your candor when we would come and ask questions, and we always hugely appreciated your, as you said in your statement, your respect for teachers, for teaching. We always enormously appreciated that it doesn't surprise me you're doing so well in business. You're a bottom line person. You're not about turf. You're not about procedure. You're about, does this thing work for the mission? And that, my dad spent 35 years in government. I've spent about 35 years in government now. I so appreciate that. That's just such a great thing to bring to the table. And so I just want to say thanks.
I would second Tim's appreciation of your financial mind. I feel like that was one of the places I was most nervous when I first came on the board, and I felt like it wasn't a place where I often feel like I have to, I felt like I could really trust you to keep our district safe on that front, which I really appreciate. I also appreciate your willingness to hold your ground. And just your personal support. You've always made me feel at home. I would second Justin in saying that I think lots of people don't see all of what goes on behind the scenes here. And just your personal support as a human being has meant a lot to me. I appreciate it, and I'm excited for you. I think it's going to be great.
And I haven't gotten to hang out with you for all that long, but thank you for your service, and I learned a lot from working with you, and look forward to continuing to learn.
All right. So why don't we come on up here, if you don't mind, Tracy, and then we'll gather around. Do have a few, yes. We'll see if Tracy can resist from opening her gifts. Okay, so now we go into roll call. Alan?
Justin Eichmann,
Here.
Tracy Farah,
Here.
Nika Weitzman,
Here.
Tim Hudson,
Here.
Bob Moranto,
Here.
Megan Hurley,
Here.
Keaton Smith.
Okay, I did not receive any citizen participation, neither did Alan, so we're going to go ahead and move into board member liaison reports, and Dr. Moranto with Academic Advisory Committee.
Actually, I don't have anything to report, although Steve Weaver soon will say quite a lot. So.
We do have some academics on the agenda tonight, so. All right. Next up is Keaton Smith, liaison with the City of Fayetteville. And
Yeah,
other community
so
matters.
after our workshop the other day, we had a fun time spent together with board and staff demoing some e-bikes, some electronic bikes from Fat Tire Bike Shop. And Bike NWA facilitated that tour, and they're going to give us a short presentation on their work and some of the things they're doing to partner with schools.
Thank you.
Do I see help?
All right, so, welcome, thank you.
Pull up my notes here as well. All right, well, thank you for having me tonight. I'm Paxton Roberts. I'm the Executive Director of Bike NWA. Anya Bruin is my Director of Education and Ridership. So Keaton, thank you very much for helping to coordinate the e-bike demo. Very much sorry that I wasn't able to join you all. I was out of town on vacation, but I'll definitely make the next one. So, but I hope you all enjoyed the ride, and I hope you found it educational, experiencing the trail and the connections to and from the Fayetteville High School campus. I've made that ride several times myself, and I'm familiar with the area. Tonight I'm here as a follow-up to the bike ride to talk to you about really opportunities we have to get more kids riding bikes. There are a lot of benefits from that, becoming more active and healthier, helping the environment, chipping away at this growing parking demand that we see in the media a lot, and also save some money. We look at this as continuing a long-term partnership with the school district that we've had. Dr. Colbert and I, when I first got into this many years ago, he's one of the first people I met when we were working with the bike education program in the schools. So we're excited to see this continue. But before I go to that, I wanted to share with you some pictures from a recent trip that I took to the Netherlands, because I think inspiration and being inspired is important before you get into kind of the work of the matter. So while I was there, I was lucky enough to come across children riding to school in several of the cities I was visiting. And these aren't big cities. These are cities like Fayetteville or even smaller. And some of this stuff hadn't been there for decades, like a lot of people believe. Some of the cities over there are still building infrastructure. So it was really a surprise when I come around a corner and see this group of girls riding to school. And, this wasn't just one group. I stayed on that corner and watched multiple groups come by, and to see their colored bikes and to hear them coming around the corner before I could see them as they were talking. And it's also interesting to note that there's a lack of something on their heads, which is very different according to our culture. So, but it's also nice to even see carpooling or bike pooling in this matter happening, even at such a young age. And this wasn't the first instance of seeing somebody giving a friend a ride to school. In another town of Lesse, which is famous for their tulip gardens, if you ever have a chance to go there, it's probably a bucket list item. I saw these girls riding to school, and what was really incredible is this is a brand new street. I mean, this was fresh pavement, fresh pavers. All of this had been put in really new. It's a real big tourist destination, and they've done a lot of work. But there was just a nonstop stream of children of all ages riding to school on this infrastructure. And you notice the nice bright red colored bike lanes. I thought they'd really go good in Fayetteville. You can maybe make them purple around the campus as well. So, but I also came across some troubling things like texting and biking. This kid, and I was actually riding my bike myself and had just taken a picture of something and saw this, and but I think it'd be rather dealing with distracted riding bicycles than distracted driving, and dealing with texting and riding over texting and driving. So, but finally in Utrecht, I came across this mother and her children riding to school. And Utrecht is one of the best known cities for its cycling infrastructure. And on our daily commute, as I passed, this boy looked up at me and kind of gave me this look, and I gave him a look, and we proceeded to sprint away from his mother in a little bit of a race, and until his mother yelled at him to come back. But I just thought about what an experience on a ride to school versus sitting in a car, being separated from the environment. It's just a whole different way of getting around. So back to the U.S. though. So that I know that many of you here tonight have experienced the same ritual that I have done many times in the morning and the evening, and that is the car line. And I think that's something that a lot of us have just come to just know is just part of going to school, right? That's just business as usual. But I think that it's important to know that it doesn't have to be this way, and me being the bike guy, my daughter has gone to elementary and middle school here in Fayetteville. We rode our bike to school a handful of times over the last 6 years, both to elementary and middle school. That's just because we so happen to live in this place where there isn't a continuous, connected, safe route to get to the schools that she went in. And so, in spite of Fayetteville being an early adopter of bike infrastructure and leading the region, we still have a ways to go. And I think there's an opportunity there because you have a committed city that is investing money, their own money, into building out this infrastructure. And I think it's an exciting way for you all to continue the partnership. And I know that that's been happening in the past with the build out of the sidewalk network and the prioritization and the recent bond package to complete the networks around schools. And in my mind, the next step of that is to look at connecting the bike network, because oftentimes we're just this close to getting to the front door of a school or the front door of kids in a neighborhood. And that's really what we have to think about, is that first and last mile problem, that unless there's a safe way to get from the front door of your house to the front door of your school and back, it's going to be a huge barrier. And so I think we have a lot of opportunity there. And I think you may have seen that on your bike ride as you were on the trail across from MLK. And if you're a student riding in the morning, all of a sudden you're out into the middle of the street. You have a stoplight, a busy road to cross of MLK, up another street. So these are not insurmountable problems. They're pieces of infrastructure that can be put in to create this safe environment, this dedicated infrastructure. So over the past decades, I'm sure that you all are aware that the rates of children walking and biking to school have dropped from well over 50% to today. We're hovering anywhere from around 10 to 15% of students walking and biking to school, depending on where you're at in the country. But I often hear people say it's because it's just not safe. That's why. It's just not safe. But I think if you do some research, and there's a lot of good research out there, that the perceptions of route safety are an important influence, but the research shows the strongest and most frequent barrier to walking and biking to school is distance. It's distance from the school, from your house. Now, if you want to go into the data a little bit further and look at some of the nuances by age, you see that parents of elementary children cite traffic volume, the number of cars on the street, and the dangerous intersections or the perceived dangerous intersections as major barriers. And if you want to look at teenagers, the parents cite that the distance to school and the crime as the main barriers. Now, I just don't know if it's because they're teenagers and they don't want to ride as far, but I think that it's just important to really go, because I think oftentimes we tend to just say, oh, we shouldn't even work on that because people just aren't going to do it. It's just not safe. But in schools that have explored their options and worked with the cities, we do see increases, and those increases mean that there are cars not on the road on the way to school and at the parking lots. So long distance, that is going to be something that's going to be a challenge. I think it's easier to work with the city on fixing the infrastructure and those gaps, and that you can do all sorts of things in programming, but we know that from my research and others, that school siting is an issue. And I know that that's a complicated one, and that there are lots of requirements from minimum acreage requirements and costs, the real cost that it costs versus expanding and retrofitting a school versus building a new one. But I think it's something that I would encourage you all to explore. I even went so far to look at the facility manual for the state, because some states have really stringent standards on this stuff. But I was very happy to see that there is flexibility within the guidance that allows for urban schools to relax parking, to relax the requirements of acreage in those. So I think it's interesting that there are a lot of opportunities, and fortunately, there's possibilities for this area. So should we do it? Well, children still are riding bikes. Even if they're not riding bikes to school, the data shows that more than half kids from 3 to 17 are still riding bikes. And so I think that there's an opportunity there to continue working on encouraging them. And this has much more benefits than just health. There's carbon reduction, energy consumption, helping to get to those goals of physical activity. It can also be there for the administration and staff to be able to get to school instead of having to drive as well. And then you can talk and even go so far as to reduce costs of busing. This is real dollar savings that districts have seen by focusing on these areas around schools. Yeah, we're not saying 10 miles away, but 1 to 3 miles away that is a convenient 5 to 10 minute bike ride. It can help really reduce some costs, and it takes a little bit of exploration. Also looking at targeting specific routes using GIS data and where students live. I've seen some anonymized studies that show where they've gone in and looked at, hey, where are the kids that we need to get to school that are most likely to do it? And I know that both internally and with the city that there are options. So how can we support you, or that is continue to support you? So like I said before, there's a history here. We've started with the Fayetteville School District, the first district-wide bike education in the state. It ran for several years, and then we worked with the district again to expand the program to put over 500 bikes in the schools through support from the Walton Family Foundation. More recently, been collecting some data and trying to identify what's working and what are the challenges with those bike ed programs so that we can help you come up with solutions to expand those programs even farther. There's also things that we can do on top of that. We've applied for a grant from the state of Arkansas for federal transportation money to hire a safe routes to school coordinator for the region. And so that person will be dedicated across the 4 major school districts for at least the first year on helping to incubate, provide resources for you all if you are willing to go down the road of safe routes to school programs and plans. And I think that's exciting. but we don't know if we're going to get it. And so I think in the interim, there are things that we can do to support you, like the bike education program, and also provide you information resources about Vision Zero for youth. There's a big Vision Zero campaign around the country on trying to eliminate deaths from traffic of all road users. Working with the city on current schools to fill in those gaps. I know Woodland Junior High is going to get some infrastructure here in the bond project that's going to connect people to the front door of school. But there are others around the city that I think you'll find willing ears from the administration on closing those gaps. And then I think further exploring the issues of school siting and how it can be really critical in long-term getting children walking and biking to school again. There are also some things that can be done with the Safe Routes to School programs, and we've actually explored some of these in the past, and I myself have helped compile the data for the student travel tallies to school, but collecting some baseline data and just knowing where you all are at this time and what are the current rates. There's those surveys that go out. Also piloting things like a potential park and ride. It's got this great bike share system that is in place, and I think that's a really good opportunity to potentially pilot a program to see if we can encourage students and even teachers to park remotely and then ride a bike to and from school. And also, we're working with the city on piloting these pilot projects of protected bike lanes around the city, because the reality of it is we can't build a shared use paved trail everywhere. And so in order to get to people's front door, we have to look at other types of infrastructure like protected bike lanes and neighborhood greenways. And so I think the schools showing their support, like this one that connects neighborhoods to Butterfield Elementary, is really critical. And, you know, I know there's been a lot of contention over the way these bumpers or bollards looks, if anybody has been paying attention to maybe some social media. But we like to say that the permanent solution is not necessarily these rubber bollards, but there are these concrete islands and planters where nice flowers can be planted and blooming that can create the same effect. And that's what cities often do in these permanent situations. So I think that's it. So I really appreciate your all's support, and hopefully some of this information has been useful, and just know that we're here as a resource and willing to work with you all.
Thank you. We really appreciate the opportunities over the years, and especially the one at the end of our workshop, all-day workshop just the other day. And I think a lot of what you said was very evident, where you have these wonderful pieces of infrastructure that go to a number of our schools and are right there, and then you have that one last barrier, and that often is the question of how do we cross that last 5-lane highway, you know, that type of thing. But you know, it certainly feels possible.
This is really cool. This is really exciting. I have to, one problem, I read a wonderful book last year, The Coddling of the American Mind. Childhood is safer than ever. Riding a bike to school, most places is really pretty safe. People are convinced it's not, for all kinds of reasons, and that's a really difficult thing to get over and through. And so that's one caution I hope we tackle, getting over and through it, because without that change in attitudes, I'm not sure how much progress there can be. The other thing, as it happens, my best friend and occasional co-author is Belgian, and always makes fun of us because our kids do not ride to school. And one thing he points out, the American system evolved over the last 80 years with transportation, with buses and all. Their system did not, except for over long distances. So they just take it for granted, and have for really, oh gosh, since the 1800s, that parents, you know, get their kids to school. Typically the kids ride to school, ride their bikes to school. Those traditions are hard to break. I would kind of like to see us break them, but it's not going to be easy. So.
Yeah, I think that's why, you know, no need to jump off the cliff and go all in, but trying pilot projects and trying things is important. And I also know that if we don't build the safe infrastructure, you're kind of spinning your wheels if you don't have a safe physical place to ride. But I think you kind of have to move both along at the same time. And there are some lessons and some great examples of other schools out there around the country that have made some gains, and that could be a follow-up information system at some point. So,
they also, by the way, just jump in too. One of the great things I love about Belgium and the Netherlands is they have a large number of small schools. We really, a century back, embarked on a very different model to have big schools to do a lot more things, even at the elementary level. And that's also kind of that's a barrier. Maybe as we build future schools, maybe there are ways around that. We can get state permission to get around that. But it's just something else to think about.
To piggyback on what Bob is saying, I would really love to see some pilot programs around communication. I feel like there are a lot of, and certainly very valuable programs around infrastructure stuff, bikes themselves, lanes, all that stuff, but just how to move the needle on people's beliefs about biking. Because while we do have some bigger schools that are sited in more challenging areas, we also in Fayetteville have a number of small schools still that are like the schools that my kids go to, like it's very bikeable. And just what we can do to help people who, like there are some people, right, whose beliefs will be very fixed in a negative biking area, and some people who are very fixed in a very positive biking area, and to help identify the people who are maybe movable on that, and to learn how to speak and communicate effectively around that because that's a huge function that the board has, is that communication piece, I think. And so
Yeah,
we
thank
would love
you.
your
That's-
guidance on that.
That's very good. Yeah, that's definitely something we can work on.
All right. Well, thank you all very much. Anya, thank you for keeping us together, not letting John L. get too far ahead. You had to watch. He's a fast rider. Yeah. Okay, so thank you all very much. And next up is the superintendent's report, and Dr. Colbert.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Altman. Just a few things. One, first, on behalf of the teachers and student body, Ms. Farrell, we would like to say thank you very much for your service that you've given to this district. We appreciate you very much, and we will miss you. So we're going to miss you. So thank you. The next thing I'd like to do is to recognize the recommendation that we're going to present for your approval is the next assistant principal at Ramey Junior High, Ms. Andrea Kitchen. She's here with us tonight. I want to just recognize her and say congratulations and welcome to our team. So she's going to be the new assistant principal at Ramey Junior High, and she has her family here with her as well. So, yeah.
Ms. Kitchen. Ms. Kitchen, could you please come up and introduce your family? Sure. Thank you. They came all this way, so we have to.
Why, thank you. Wow, I get to speak on the microphone. That's awesome. Good afternoon, everyone. First of all, Andrea Kitchen is who I am, and you guys have seen it on paper there. But first of all, I just really wanted to thank you for the opportunity to go and serve our community, serve the school system in a different dimension. So just thankful to Dr. Colbert and to the board and to all of the leaders who are here. Thank you very much to Dr. Christina. Thank you so much for her leadership and guidance through this. My husband, Todd Kitchen, Dr. Todd Kitchen, he is here. Can you stand him? Sorry, you came all this way. And my daughter, my baby daughter, Adriana Kitchen, she is actually a Fayetteville High School graduate.
Oh, great. Wonderful. Great.
But once again, just thank you so much for the opportunity.
Thank you very much.
Thank you
Ms.
all very
Kitchen.
much for
Yes.
coming, and welcome.
And then also just want to let you know that there's a lot of changes going around at the different schools. One of the big projects that we're working on, we don't have a problem with the traffic flow at the different schools. We don't have that, right? Well, I guess we do. But anyway, we are working on a signage project that we're going to implement at each school to help with the flow that people would understand and have a better understanding of how to get in and get out. So that should help that situation, trying to make sure that we have the signage there directing people which route and which direction they should be going. So that's going to be happening throughout the summer, and hopefully when schools start, that will be implemented at the different campuses. And also, we're going to have new floors in Vandergrift and McNair, and so that would be taking place. So they're going to have a new look when they walk into the building, and we have finished the floor in there at Root. So, and then we have several other big projects going on throughout the district. The maintenance people are working very hard. And then also our staff, we are lifelong learners. A group just left Hot Springs. I was there with them, about 30-plus staff members. We were there learning throughout that whole week, so that was real productive, and also we was bonding as well, so it was a good feeling to be there with the teachers and with the leadership. So that's going to be going on throughout the summer with professional development. And then also, as we continue to work and look at across the east from the building here, hopefully you've seen the progress that's going on towards the new parking area. So we're excited about that piece. They're on schedule, and hopefully it'll be ready to go when school opens. And as you look at the front of the high school there facing MLK, that parking lot also is in the progress of being upgraded and with the new direction. So good things are happening. Hopefully we'll have all that completed at the beginning of the school year in August. So thank you, Mr. President.
Great. Thank you, Dr. Colbert. So we will move on over to the consent agenda. I do not believe there's any slip sheets or changes today. So with that, can accept a motion to accept the consent agenda as presented, or any member can pull out an item for individual consideration.
I move that we accept the consent agenda as presented.
Okay, it's a motion from Nika. Is there a second?
Second.
Second from Bob. Any discussion from the board? All right. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say no. Consent agenda is approved 7-0. Over to new business, and we have the school level improvement plan, which used to be the ACSIP. And I believe is that Dr. Weaver, is that you who presents on this particular topic? Did I miss anything?
Good evening. I'm here to request permission for you to review and approve what was formerly known as the ACSIP plan, and now the State of Arkansas and Arkansas Department of Education is calling it SLIP, which stands for School Level Improvement Plan. So the same thing you've approved at this time annually, but it is new this year, and it's called the School Level Improvement Plan. And once all boards in Arkansas in each school district approve, then it goes to the State Board of Education and to the Arkansas Department of Education. So I am here tonight to request your permission to review and approve the school level improvement plan for each of our 16 schools.
I can only imagine how much fun you have, you and your team and all the folks in the buildings in preparing each of the pieces. How different is this process than the old ACSIP type of thing, or is this kind of a lateral change, or have they asked for more or less information? I think I know the answer.
I think it's more intentional and more purposeful. Just to be short, I could give more specific details if we pulled them both up on the screen and compared, but to answer your question, it's more purposeful. I think the principals felt like there were parts of the old plan that was just busy work and compliance. This feels like it will really guide our work, and I know I'm very excited about the strategic plan that the board has been working on. So I feel like in the future, this work will definitely align with the strategic plan goals, and I feel like the principals feel like this is much more intentional. I arrived in the district a few years ago, and I remember the principals at that time, there were parts of the old plan that felt like pulling teeth. It just felt more like compliance. So I think the principals like it better, and I should give credit to Mickey McFetridge. In his first year as our Director of Federal Programs, he was the person in our division that led this work. So he did a great job in his first year, and it was kind of nice that in his first year they were transitioning to a new plan. He didn't really have to learn anything but the new way.
I did get the attention when you were going through the plan, and you see components of our strategic plan in there. It was really interesting to see, how that plan has been taken really in a more detailed level into a school improvement plan at an elementary, for example. That was interesting to read that part. And this is new business, so it'll be before us in July. And a reminder, I should have said this at the beginning, the next month's the July meeting is going to be on the third Thursday, not the fourth Thursday of the month. So we have kind of a short interlude there, but it'll be back up before us in July.
I thought this had a lot more specificity than the past. It looked like a lot of you folks put a lot of work into it, which is great. I have a lot of thoughts that you and I can talk about privately sometime, but I have a couple of thoughts just to mention. One is socio-emotional learning can be a very tricky thing. And so a lot of times it doesn't work out so well. So I would just urge a lot of great care and caution in what programs adopt and how they're used. And a lot of times traditional academic learning can really push that. When I think about people, studying history, reading great novels, a lot of times there's some evidence that builds things like perspective taking, the ability to have empathy with other people, if you're talking about, the history of George Washington or Martin Luther King or any number of other things. Something else I just throw in, I love the emphasis on integrity. I think that's something that maybe we should try to measure in terms of student surveys. If you just look at cases reported, that can be really misleading, can even lead to incentives to not report stuff. So I think that would be something that's really good to get a fix on. And there's always going to be some issues, but figure out how to try to limit those issues over a 2 or 3 or 4 year period. But I think there's a lot of great stuff here. I think people clearly did a lot of work on it. I love the SWOT analysis at the high school, talking about the importance of having time for teacher-guided study during the school day and intramurals and things like that, clubs that can actually build a lot of socio-emotional learning. So I liked a lot of the discussion here. I'll look forward to talking with you about it further. I'm sure a lot of the staff will. And I'd urge staff members to read over these. Clearly, leadership, including some teachers in some cases, put a lot of work into things.
I also find, it's so exciting to see the goals from the board break down into school at a school level. In the change from exit, it is really exciting to see the additional intentionality and less hoop jumping, but it also means that as schools comply with the plan that they've made, that it has a real impact in the building. And so I would ask that families and teachers and administrators at every level really use this month between now and the July meeting to it's not for board members to dig into these individual building level plans, but just to really look at what's going to go on in your school. And talk to the people who are making, if this is the first that this has been published, to really talk to the people who you feel like you need to talk to. Because while the board is not going to dig into the plans at an individual level, we are going to sign off on them and then they will be real. So, and then people in building will live with them. So use your month, I think is what I'm trying to say.
It's a tough month to do it. One thing I'd add in, I think Megan and I both brought this up before, we're very concerned about equity in resources. And one thing it'd be great to see, and it's not that these lead to clear paths for what to do, but I think we should see, actually ESSA requires it next year, I think, to see building level expenditures, which including personnel expenditures. I think that's an important thing just for us to be aware of.
I think the U of A has published that now.
They
Right?
have?
I think that Sarah has that. If
I
you
need to
want
read
it.
Sarah's blog more often.
Yeah, Gal's on it. She's got it.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Weber. We will see you in 3 weeks.
Thank you,
On
Mr.
this
Eichmann
particular
and board
topic.
members. I will share your words with the principals, and they can share that with the teachers, because this was very much a team approach. It wasn't just a bunch of principals writing it for their school only, and so I'll share your words tonight with our principals. Thank you.
Well, your newly appointed board president blew through the strategic plan update from Nika. So, Cambry, I'm sorry. I'm going to put you on hold just for 1 minute, and we're gonna actually handle that point. So, Nika, I apologize. But.
I'll try to be brief, Cambry. So the board had a all-day workshop on June 17th where we took the next step forward with our strategic plan. But just as a little bit of background, we have been, over the last year and a half to 2 years, I guess, we as a district have been very diligent about identifying the opportunities and challenges and just the priorities for our district that we wanted to be intentional about, that we wanted to be able to see progress, measurable progress. And so the board identified those things through a combination of resources. The Framing Our Future work is a big part of what went into the development of the strategic plan, but there have been there's been a lot of additional input as well from faculty members, administrative priorities that have established these goals. And so we, in October, identified the goals and the overall values of our district. And so we have been marching forward, our administrative team has been working very hard, a huge effort, a very large group effort to help us figure out how to measure progress on these goals. And so our June meeting, I think we were all just incredibly encouraged after that time to see that we are coming up with metrics that will be reported back to the board a couple of times a year that will help us to see progress or lack thereof. So we're not that we're content either way, but we do want to be able to see an honest picture, because we have kind of made the mistake once or twice in the past where we want to see the pretty picture and not the struggles. But I think as a board, we've all just decided we need to see a very honest picture of what's happening in our district, the challenges as well as the successes. And I think this strategic plan is just a huge step towards that end. Did I say that correctly? Yeah. So I guess just here's what eventually Holly Johnson has been working very hard with a graphic designer to put together a booklet that we will be rolling out at Convocation in August. It's not yet complete, but we're very close. There's a couple metrics that we asked our administrative team to add to what we just had a couple little holes that needed to be filled, and so we're still trying to add a few of those metrics. But it will be finished and ready to go before the staff retreat in July, which will give Dr. Colbert this very useful tool to take with him to the July staff retreat, where the idea is, and I think Dr. Colbert is looking forward to being able to work through these goals one by one. There are 4 goals, each of them with 3 to 5 objectives. So administrators will take those to their departments, but then also school leaders will be able to develop their school level plans, which is why I was so encouraged to see this, Dr. Weaver, because this is exactly the work's already been done, even though some of these goals, the wording has changed just a little bit, which I know you're aware of, but the heart of them is the same. It's just the what am I trying to say? The wording has changed. So anyway, and this is a trickle-down effect. I think this strategic plan will be useful in so many different ways. But so Dr. Colbert will take this to his administrative team in July. Then we will roll it out in August at the convocation. But then we as a board will get back together in February to take another look at the strategic plan. We kind of have had a variety of conversations around the fact that this is it's sort of a trial run. It's a little bit more than that because we're taking it very, very seriously, but we're also not aiming for perfection because we have done this in-house. We haven't hired a professional, and we're not strategic plan professionals, but we are Fayetteville Public Schools professionals. And so I think what we came up with is very homegrown. It's very organic, but we won't be surprised if we need to make some tweaks when we look back at this in February. I think all of us are comfortable with that. And then when we come back together again at our retreat in June, we will have a whole new look, maybe make a couple of adjustments that then Dr. Colbert can take back to his staff the following July. But it is, so ideally I think it will end up being a 5-year plan, but we are going to take this first year to a little bit flexible, more flexible. The following 4 years will be more concrete approach. So we're encouraged. We're really excited about it. I think all of us feel like we've put a lot of time, a lot of heart and soul into this. I'm so, so grateful to a number of people. I've just served as kind of I feel like I've been cracking the whip more than anything. I'm sure everybody's, because I am not an education professional, but I am very passionate about having a guiding plan. And so I have served that role, but I'm so grateful to Holly Johnson and to Nandra Campbell and to Dr. Kelly Dugan and Megan Slocum, Dr. Slocum, for all of their time in particular, but others as well who have put time in on this. And Dr. Colbert, I just appreciate your support. So we're excited. I don't know if you guys have any comments to add.
I think the only thing that I was going to add was how excited I am to be able to present this to patrons and have a discussion. One of the very interesting thing about this role is when you are presented with a question of what are you all doing about a certain thing, and you're able to say, well, you know, there's 5 big initiatives going on in the district, and there are a lot of people who are dedicated to this, and this is what they're doing, this is what they're focused on. You see an expression and somebody completely change, and we've had that happen from time to time. Well, this is one of those tools where somebody can go and look and see what it is, because it is a big district. There are a lot of people doing big things, and I can guarantee you on an issue, the answer is never, we're doing nothing for an important issue. There are people who are in resources and in programs and things in the work. So getting your arms around that and is one thing, but then also putting a goal like we're gonna better, we're gonna improve, we're gonna hold ourselves to that standard is a neat thing. And then we've all had a few. I guess we all are cheerleaders for our own ideas, and we all have some things that are probably in the back of our minds that say, hey, maybe it should make it into the plan, or we should consider about this. And the good thing about this is that the plan with this plan is not to put it on a shelf and forget about it. It's gonna be revisited. I assume it'll be more fine-tuning and light revision, but it will not be the end of the discussion. It's going to be the beginning of the discussion, and I like the way that is integrating across our calendar, across the work that we do in a district. I love the way that administration has not only embraced it, but has taken off with it. So just I'm very impressed by the effort, and want to thank you all for not only being on board, but leading it. So.
I wanted to say 2 things. First, what Nika said about it being about not having hired a consultant, I think I just want to highlight that. I feel like there are certainly times when we need to hire consultants, but I feel like it's one of my favorite parts about this plan is that it is designed to be recursive and designed to be a living document. We talked in our workshop about how we'll come back to different pieces, like certain parts of the plan will be accomplished and fall off at different times. That while it's a 5-year plan, it's like an everyday breathing plan. And I think that's incredibly exciting. I think sometimes consultants do come in with a very sealed off and finished product, and I think that one of the major strengths of this is that it isn't sealed off in that way. The other thing I wanted to say, Nika is very humble and great at sharing credit, and credit should be shared. But I also think it's really important to recognize all the work that you've done on this. I think one of your you have many major things that you bring to board service, but I feel like the strategic plan has put together some of them in just awesome ways. One of those, I think, is Justin was talking about this not going on the shelf, and this plan is not just a plan that doesn't go on the shelf, it's also a plan that takes into account previous work that our whole community did. The way that you brought Framing Our Future and all the work that our whole town did on that into this. Each one of the goals aligns to work that was done there. Every single one of those was at 10, were there 10 subcommittees for that? And they're all included, their work is included, every single one of them. You can track into this plan. Nika, I think, also is just incredibly persistent. Really, and it's a harder slog. Like, there's a lot of resistance that comes up when you try to bring something big across the line, and you've been so persistent. It's really inspiring for me to watch. And I would also say that I think you're like neutrality. You said that you're not an education professional, but I think that you're like you really listen to everybody, and you're great at asking questions that put their expertise together. You've done, I hope that you, as you share credit, can also take some for yourself, because you worked really, really hard and created something awesome.
You work cheap.
Yes, so cheap. Oh my gosh, the cheapest.
Get her a bottle of water, another one.
Yes.
Okay. Well, I'm just really excited that it gets the whole district on the same page, that everybody is locking arms over the same goals and objectives, and I think everybody's excited. It's gonna we are locking arms, but it's not gonna be easily attainable stuff. I mean, it's gonna require some shifts in thinking, some pretty major shifts in thinking, some shifts in priorities. So it's not, I don't think it's gonna be an easy, even from this point, even with a complete strategic plan, I think the next steps forward are gonna be challenging. So the fact that we're all on the same page with it is gonna make that a little bit easier.
And all working together. I think it's a really exciting chance for the board to work meaningfully with administration, with teachers, with building leaders. I mean, I think that we really are, you talked about like there being, like highlighting places where it's like messy, and I feel like we all get to be in that mess together, which is really actually where we actually are, which is great.
All right. Well, thank you, Nika. Appreciate the update, and sorry for skipping over you earlier. But we're going to go ahead now and move on to the Memorandum of Understanding with the Fayetteville Public Education Foundation. And Cambry Hornbrooks is here. Cambry, thank you for coming. I guess another exciting thing that is big that's going on in our district is we have a really amazing foundation that began roughly 25 years ago, but especially of late has been growing and growing and doing more exciting things. And one of the great things that they have done is they've also gone through a strategic planning process and are entering into new phases. And one of the things that Cambry and I have worked on, as well as with the help of with Dr. Colbert and Chris and Holly and others, is this Memorandum of Understanding that is before you. So Cambry, I'll go ahead and turn it over to you, but I just wanted to thank you for all that collaboration and work, being so willing to not only work with us, but to really transform the foundation and grow it into a new level of cooperation, affiliation with the district.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you guys for having me here this evening. The MOU is really not something new. It's something that's just been delayed for quite a while. In the archives of our documents at the foundation, I pulled up years of MOUs that were signed before my time with my predecessors in school board. So speaking to Dr. Colbert earlier, I think it was last year, we started talking about coming up with an MOU that would just pretty much codify the partnership between the foundation and the Fayetteville Public School District. And hopefully y'all have had an opportunity to look over it, and I can go through the fine points, or we can, however y'all want to proceed. More than anything, I think this prevents us from having to revisit our partnership annually, and everybody on the same page about how we do collaborate and partner with the district on our activities and the things that we do. So did everybody get a copy? Okay, good. Thank you.
It was sent to us via, Jennifer sent it out via email. I think everybody got a copy. And of course, this is new business, so it'll be on the agenda again in July. So we do have an opportunity to look it over. But I think the intent here was to get into the connections between the foundation and the district, and where we communicate and need to communicate, and the certain things that we have, and to put those down. I think the last one was that we had was 10 years ago? Was that right? Or something like that?
That's
So
embarrassing to say
probably
that
good
out
to get
loud,
back
yes,
into
but yeah.
into the habit of doing that.
Correct, correct. I think the biggest thing, I wrote down some very quick points that we wanted to make sure that were collaborating and the partnership remained strong between the district and the foundation, and obviously with our grants and our scholarship awards to the teachers and students, that we solidify that those will continue to happen, and the transparency of how those awards are distributed with the administration as well as the teachers. Also, sharing of information between the district and the foundation on appropriate documents and events going on, so we can all be on the same page and working together. Donor recognition is something that needed to be, I mean, each year it seemed of us going through annually a different person, and we wanted to make sure there was a common place to look to see where we were using building and facilities often to recognize patrons that we're giving to the foundation, but ultimately we're coming through the work of the foundation back to the school district itself. And collaboration on the promotion of the foundation through communications with the community, so partnerships and to our patrons that are out there, reaching patrons more often through communications through the district as a partner. Of course, our property at 877 Clinton Drive, we've been there for 20 years. It's a small house. It's a tiny house. And I've got 2 interns in there right now, and 1 semi-part-time staff and 1 full-time staff member. So there's right now, I guess there's 5 of us in there, 4 of us in there, 5 of us in there. So it's gotten a little tight, but we definitely appreciate it. And that is a lease agreement. Well, it has been an ongoing financial agreement that we've had with the district over the last 20 years of $300, which allows us to have the fiber optics that come into the building itself, and the all electricity, overhead, water, what have you. We have light custodial work that comes in. We assume cost of any kind of breakage or anything that goes on within the building itself. We get the lawn care like everybody else does. The fiber optics we paid for the first year I came in. We ended up paying, I think, $3,500 to allow us to have access to the Wi-Fi and the broadband. At that time, it was literally, we had an AT&T account, and I was like, oh my gosh, this is really, really bad. And we had nothing to back up our documents. They were literally putting discs into the computer at the end of the day and leaving and walking away with all the documents, which is 9,000 names of donors who have contributed, as well as all our grant recipients. So that was kind of frightening for me. So I was very appreciative that y'all were able to partner with us on that. And then we started backing up everything to the cloud. Thank goodness for the cloud. And I think that's about it. The last thing that might be a little new on this that hasn't been there in the years before was just codifying the Alumni Association, because I know that we'll be leaning on some of the staff a little bit to help us identify alumni. And that's kind of a me-casa-su-casa relationship, because I think that the communications team has been getting a lot of asks and questions about the alumni and who's being pointed in what direction to handle those questions. And so that certainly is something we want to help with. And then the last is the Day of Giving, which is something we haven't tried out yet, which is a possible day in which we just have a day of celebration about the foundation to assist in the furtherance of the mission of the foundation and reach more parents, more understanding about what the foundation does. And that's going to be a collaborative effort with the whole entire district to be able to get that achieved. So, and that's pretty much it.
So 2 of the things that will be coming forward, as Cambry mentioned, would be a lease that will follow this under the terms that are in the agreement. And we're going to work with Chris on getting that together. And then we have talked on a number of occasions about getting both boards together. The foundation board is a bigger board than this. It's
getting a little too
18,
big.
20 people, something like that?
20.
20?
Let's meet at your office then.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Place to hang out.
And would like perhaps this fall to do that. There's some very interesting things happening on their side, and would like to have that relationship. I don't know if it's really known who all is on there from our perspective and kind of, you know, what all the various things that they're doing. And it's an interesting, very interesting thing that's happening over there. So look forward to doing that as well.
Yeah, that'd be great. Yes, yes, yes.
Okay. Any questions for Cambry? This will be coming back in a couple weeks.
Amber, you'll be happy to know that it just came up in a casual conversation today, someone asking questions about giving to the foundation, and
Oh, fantastic.
so I said, oh, no, give it to the hospital instead. That's what I told them. But, no, I was excited to be able to share, you know, some of the thoughts and plans. I tell you, the video you all shared of the at the Drake Field event, that thing was just astounding. All the projects and the activity, and of course it was filmed so wonderfully, and the kids' comments were incredible. That should just be playing, you know, on a TV in your office all the time or wherever you go. But that was
It's gearing up, and actually I have to thank Trey Marley for helping us. That was one
course.
of those examples of collaboration between the district and the time and effort that he put into doing that, and so we always appreciate the district for helping us with that. But yeah, that's going to be dripped through the summer, yes. But yeah, thank you, Tim.
Okay. Thank you very much, Cambry.
All right, thank you.
Appreciate it. Okay, so now we will move over to, to old business. And first up is the 2019-2020 certified salary schedule. We have Greg Moniz.
Yes, sir. This salary schedule was presented to the board at last month's meeting. It represents a 1% increase to the certified pay scale. And I'm here to answer any questions you might have.
So this went back to up through PPC and has received the recommendation, correct?
Since last month's meeting, it has been presented to the PPC with their recommendation.
Great, okay. Well, is there any questions for Greg? It's great to be able to do another raise this year, so very happy to do that. Okay, so is there a motion?
I move to accept the salary schedule.
Second.
We have a motion to accept and a second. Is there any discussion from the board? Any discussion from the floor? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed say no. Okay, it's adopted 7-0.
Thank you.
Thank you, Greg. Next up is a 2020-2021 school calendar, and Dr. Tucker, welcome.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be here. At last month's meeting, Dr. Ben submitted for your consideration the 2021 school calendar, both the traditional calendar and the continuous learning calendar. And we're here today to ask your approval of those calendars.
Are there any questions or discussion for Dr. Tucker?
I feel like we need to have PTOs schedule those Sonic drinks for quarter 3, 2020, 2021. It was a long quarter, but yeah.
I will see what I can do.
See what you can do about that.
What was that?
I feel like we need, quarter 3 is very long
It
and
is, yeah.
unbroken. And I just was saying that the PTOs should bring Sonic drinks then. That's all.
But they did add that one day in April that we haven't had before, so they
Yes.
have that one long weekend, which.
Yeah, no, but by then we're in quarter 4.
That doesn't do it.
Yeah, that doesn't do it
Oh,
for
you're
quarter
talking
3.
quarter 3.
Quarter 3 is just, it's 48 unbroken days.
And then 49 on
And I
the
just,
CLC.
yeah, that's all. I'm sure it's going to be an amazing 48
it's-
unbroken days, but
I think that's always
Yeah.
it's always a challenge
Yeah.
as we look at these, is that
I know,
that one
it's
quarter.
true. Yeah, and then, so good.
Sonic drinks. I move that we accept the calendars as presented.
Second.
Okay, there's a motion and a second. Any discussion from the board? Any discussion from the floor? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed say no. Motion passes 7-0.
Thank you.
Thank you. And next up is the school breakfast and lunch price increase.
Yes, sir.
Dr. Colbert?
Last month, we presented to you the recommendation for the increase in the breakfast and lunch prices, which is based upon the federal program. We use the PLE tool to set those, so we're asking for your approval.
so moved.
Okay. Motion from Tim,
Second.
second from Tracy. Any discussion from the board? Any discussion from the floor? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed say no. Okay, motion passes 7-0. Next up is the curriculum review cycle for the counselor task force, and I believe Dr. Weber is up here for that. We had a presentation at the May meeting, right, on this very thing.
Here for the second month with the Counselor Task Force. Earlier this year, we've approved, or not we, the board has approved the Math Task Force recommendations, Science Task Force this year, Library Task Force, and the third group this year is our school counselors. And our school counselors have brought together recommendations. They've been turned into the form of a website that would include onboarding process for future hires. It would also include what do you do when students have certain situations come up with families or with stress or trauma and other situations that K-12 students may face. So the website is very thorough, and we're in a much better place than we were before we had all these resources organized. So I am very pleased with the work of the Counselor Task Force, and I'm here tonight to ask if there are any questions from the board.
Any questions? We did have we had a pretty lengthy discussion at the last
Yeah,
meeting.
I don't have questions, but I spoke a little bit with Dr. Weber before the meeting, and I just wanted to share that I feel like one of the great things about these review cycles is that we can find some of the gaps that we talked about last time, and that we then get to continue work on them. That it's not like when this curriculum review cycle ends for counselors that we can never touch it again. And so I think there are exciting opportunities like the strategic plan to see growth opportunities. So I'm excited to work with you on that.
Thank you.
I just, and I've probably said this lots and lots of times, I love the fact that the staff were heavily involved in doing this and developing the programs to actually implement. And I really do like the notion of a 5, 6, 7-year cycle, because I think I've seen so many organizations where there'll be 3 innovations a year, and the next year you'll dump all 3. And I really like the continuity with this. And I have to applaud you and your staff for the way you're doing this.
Thank you.
So, Dr. Weber, we need a motion to approve what would that be?
I move that we approve the
That would be the recommendation.
Recommendations?
curriculum review cycle, counselor task
The
force.
counselor task force recommendations?
Yes.
Okay.
How many people just said that?
3.
Yeah.
That was
Maybe
a
I'm not repeating it
3-person
for-
team.
It's actually mental health task force recommendation.
That's next, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's next, yeah.
Oh, I'm
That'll be
sorry,
even
I'm
worse,
sorry.
Tim. We'll leave that one to
I'm
you.
sorry,
We'll leave
going
that to
ahead
you.
So we have a motion to approve the counselor task force recommendations, and we have I think that was made by Nika, and then Megan made a second. I'll go ahead and sign those.
And then we edited
And so,
On the fly.
any discussion from the board? Any discussion from the floor? Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say no. Okay, motion passes 7-0, and then we go over to Tim's favorite subject, the mental health.
Yes, thank you.
So what you want to jump to.
Get me some help.
And Dr. Tucker, are you up for that one again? Okay.
At last month's meeting, I believe Joyce Shirley and Carla Curtis presented information on the findings of the Mental Health Task Force. We're here tonight to ask you to approve their recommendations. I will say that I'm very excited about joining them on this work. I think that many people realize that there is more, we do more for students than just teaching them reading, writing, and arithmetic. So this is filling in some of those very important gaps for students.
One of those areas where we have had people who have come to us and said, what are you doing about, and when you talk about the various things we're doing in addition to the mental health task force, it's very reassuring to people that this has been a top focus.
It's a priority.
Questions for Dr. Tucker? And this would be a motion, just like the other one, motion to accept the mental health task force recommendations as they were presented.
I move that we accept the mental health task force recommendations as presented.
Second.
Okay, I have a motion by Nika and a second by Megan. Any discussion from the board? Any discussion from the floor? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed say no. All right, motion passes 7-0.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. And then next up, are you up here for the policies too?
I'm here for policy.
Okay, we have Dr. Tucker for the policies. Again, this is all old business, but these are our new policies, and we have heard these in the May meeting. But the first up is 6.7, patron complaint and problem solving. Next is 41.8, substitute salary schedule, certified and classified.
Yes, sir, the policies were presented last month for consideration. Do you want to do these together or take each policy separately?
We have had a practice of doing both, but we can do them together, and I think it's, I guess if a board member has a problem with a particular policy, we can do it individually, but if not, we can do them together. I think that's been our
Tracy, I
practice.
assumed you wanted to break them in half and go through.
Let's go through just half of each one of them.
So, yeah, the addition on the patron complaint thing regarded a whole separate section on federal program complaints. That's the only thing that's
Correct.
happening there then.
Statutory change, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Mostly, yeah. Nothing else.
We had a few, on the other one, on the substitute pay, we talked about a need to make some adjustments there on the amount of pay for certain positions, and, yeah. Was that a minimum wage issue? Okay, it was a minimum wage.
Minimum wage.
As well.
So any questions about any of them specifically? If not, we can take a motion to adopt both policy 6.7 or 41.8.
So moved. Approval for both.
Okay, we have a motion to approve both policies.
Second.
Okay, there's a second by Nika. Any discussion from the board? Any discussion from the floor? All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say no. Motion's passed 7-0. So now we're going to move on to the added items, which is item G, and there's a slip sheet here regarding the scoreboard. I'm going to go ahead and turn that over to Dr. Colbert.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. President. Board, I'm coming to you this evening to ask that you approve us, to allow us to go ahead and purchase an LED scoreboard for the Harmon playfield. Throughout the year, we've been having some major problems with the current scoreboard, and I don't think we'll be able to make it through another season, so I'm asking that you all allow us to use cash floor money to purchase it, but that money will be replenished through the donation from the community. We've had several groups who would say, hey, we would like to help purchase that. Of course, we'll display their names and all, and also we'll sell ads, and they can have a digital display it on the scoreboard itself. So therefore, those funds would come back and help replenish that line item in the budgets. But in order for us to do it, we have to go ahead and utilize the cash flow from the current budget to purchase it.
My understanding that's the way we've done it in the past
Yes.
with these type of things.
Yes,
where
correct.
You have the advertisement sales. So,
Know who the provider or the contractor?
We work, contractor,
Well,
no, we,
who's providing the board itself and then the installation and such?
we're working through the bids there.
Okay.
so those would be
Right, coming, yeah.
reflected in the next, yeah.
So that would, that 400,000 initially would come from the building fund?
Yeah, building, yes,
Okay.
yes, ma'am, correct.
And if you're still working through the bids, do y'all, is that price?
The price was, well, as we were looking at the different bids, it's about $390, $378, but we rounded up to $400,000.
Okay, so like the highest bid.
Kind of
We're
a,
Yeah,
your
just to
ceiling is
cover,
at
yes.
400.
And I think the problem is that, as Dr. Colbert and I met about this, is it may not work when the season starts. And so I think the idea was it needed to get replaced and then replenished through the community donations. So
I was gonna see if Tracy wanted it as like a parting gift.
we could put it in her backyard.
No, if it's not gonna light up, there's no point then.
Yeah.
Doggone it.
So Dr. Colbert, you needed
A motion.
a motion to approve.
Yes.
Okay.
So moved.
Yeah.
We have a motion by Tim,
Second.
second by Nika. Any discussion from the board? Any discussion from the floor? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say no. Okay, motion passes 7-0. Okay, the last item is, as we know, with the creation of a vacancy, I thought I would step us through just a bit of a process, and I have written something out here that I'll pass out. Dave, if you want to copy this, I can give you one after the end. Arkansas law with regard to a vacancy in a school board requires us to act with some diligence. We have 30 days from the date of the creation of the vacancy. Tracy's resignation is going to be through June 30th. That'll be her last day, and then starting July 1, the countdown begins. So by the end of the month of July, we will need to meet and to appoint a replacement. Tracy serves in Zone 4, and that zone is a part of Holcomb Elementary, what looks to be probably most or all of Asbell, kind of looks like to me.
Well, there's a little bit that's not.
A little bit that's not. And then there's a part that goes from Township and Gregg Corner south of Township along to just beyond Gully Park into the Oaks neighborhood. It's a little appendage that comes out there that has part of the Root School District.
It's pretty much the middle of town.
It takes the middle of town swath.
265 or one street into 265 and straight out through the middle of town.
So if you think of like
Woodland and it's just straight over.
northwest, Woodland, northwest Fayetteville, then Woodland over west past Gully Park, south of Township is probably the best way I can say that. And so the replacement would need to come from that zone, which is why we just spent 2 minutes trying to explain where it is. But within that period, the way we have done this in the past is that the board has accepted applications from, really they have to be registered voters who are residents of the zone, and has had a process by which we review the applications, conduct interviews, and then have an appointment. So that'll be conducted in July. And so what we have here is a suggested process. I believe that it might be in our best interest. I put in there basically a 2-week window to accept applications, and then to set a meeting in, the 15th or 16th on either of those days to have a review of applications, and then from the July 18th through 26th schedule interviews, and then sometime on or before July 29th to meet and have a approval of the replacement. So, and then as we did last time, Tim had laid out this process for when Jim Hossel resigned from the board, but during that time, we had a letter of consideration that was submitted along with a resume. That's how we got Nika. And so,
Sorry that process didn't
Yeah,
work last time.
it-
We're stuck with a strategic plan and, committed, dedicated person.
so it worked well for us the time before, but we asked that the letter include certain things, and that was why the applicant is interested in serving as a member of the Board of Education, how the applicant feels qualified for the service, the applicant's time and availability and dedication to the service, and something about what the applicant believes are some of the important issues that are before the district, which is always interesting to hear. So I have a disclaimer at the very top of this that says that these times might adjust because this becomes a scheduling issue at times, but I guess I wanted to see if we were all on board with this type of process, number one, and then number two, if we could, at all possible, set that first meeting where we would review applications, and then we could probably wing the rest of it as we go.
Is there an electronic submission option?
Is email an electronic submission?
Yes.
Yes.
I'm just, that fifth bullet up, X, it seems like you have to drop off a physical letter and
You were right.
application, and I just feel like if you're okay with it,
I am.
we can accommodate
and
2019.
You have keen eyes. I've worked on a press release with that I've just gotten with Alan with today on that'll have the process, and in that I had my email and Alan's, and a way to, back in Tim's day, he required you to,
Smoke signal it.
have a pilgrimage to the district to deliver it.
Which is lit in stone.
Pony
But,
Express.
But I did put in there that it could be emailed.
Right.
I guess just to be clear, the date I have down for the, and I'm looking for it in my eyes, for the submission, for the deadline for the applications is noon on July 12th, which is a Friday. So it would need to come in by July 12th noon, and then we would meet, that Monday or Tuesday to review those applications. So,
It's a tight window, but the law is the law, and if we don't do our job, then the quorum court would do it for us. Is that what I recall?
that is correct. So there's a significant stick at the end of that 30 days. So we would want to, of course, act. And we usually get at least the time that I've been a part of it, we had really great applicants. A lot of people very fortunate to have a lot of people who would like to serve. And this would be, the state legislature has done us no favors with moving the election date so many times, and this will be another time when the election date moves. The next election, the school election, is going to be in March. So we've gone from September to May, now to March. And so this will be an appointment to up until the next election, which will be March. And then in March, there'll be an election for the remainder of the term, which will be 2022. And then in 2022, there'll be an election for the full 5-year term. So I had to sat down with Chris and made sure I had that correct. And he assured me that we did. So hopefully that'll make sense to people, and try to make it clear, because it's not, on Jim's, when Jim resigned, it lined up perfectly with the end of his term, so we didn't have those alignment issues.
My only concern, Justin, and I already shared this with you, is that this is the first 2 weeks of July when people are not in the mindset of school business. And so we're going to need a lot of help from our trustee media friends in the audience. And also, I think everybody is just going to have to do make an extra effort to get this information out there.
I think we've talked about, John Ellen and I have talked about that, about having a little extra effort on this one to make sure that the news of this penetrates summer vacations and things like that.
And if there's stuff that, I know that we'll all try to do that, but if the district has ideas about what board members can do to help fill that vacancy, well, let us know.
So are we, in general, okay with the process?
I know legally this is okay, but pragmatically, could one of us participate by Skype in some of the deliberations? So I know I'll be at the ocean at a certain point.
I can't remember that whole Skype law, Chris.
I know
Do you
it's
remember?
legal,
Did we pass something that allowed that?
We did.
We did. Okay.
Mhm.
'Cause didn't you?
I remember being the one pushing for it, because I was gone.
Well, ironically, then it might be. Because I remember we had to adopt something first that allowed it, and I think it can be done. I can't.
It's definitely true for meetings, and I think there's a limit to the number of meetings that any
Yeah.
board member can participate in
Right,
via
that's what I
Skype. It's
recall,
like 2 or something in
Special.
a year.
It's a special meeting, not
Yeah.
a regular routine
Right.
school board meeting.
Yeah.
And it's not a personnel issue.
No.
Chris, we
So-
research that.
Should we continue to make it up, or do you?
We had a board workshop where we discussed revising the policy to allow that to happen, but we never got the board never actually officially acted on that.
Really?
We can check to see if there is any authority to have a Skype participation, notwithstanding the fact that the policy doesn't reflect it. But right now, the policy does not provide for that. It was discussed in that workshop last fall.
Wow. Okay, well, we'll look at that.
Yeah.
Thanks for the question. I hadn't thought about that, and maybe we need to close up that loop anyway, so.
And this is our business, and we're the ones who get to decide. We definitely want the assist in terms of promoting and just notifying people if it's not on anyone's radar screen. And of course, this is, it's a kind of a trial run. They get to have some fun for a few months and then decide come election time if they want to have more fun.
You get great parting gifts, so that's
Yes.
part of it, yeah.
Exactly.
And you get to hang out with us, which
Yeah.
is amazing.
Would you like a scoreboard?
So if we're okay in general with the process, we can proceed that way. I had, would like to explore the 15th and 16th, and I know, I think, are we better with the 16th than the 15th, is what I may have heard from a couple people?
Yeah, I'm out of town on the 15th.
Okay. Could we do Tuesday the 16th by chance?
We're talking about, it doesn't have to be after hours, I mean, but I assume we're looking at nighttime or
Have to be
evening.
after 5?
Chris, does it have to be after 5? It's not a person, well, I don't know. Is that
It's
qualified
Are we
not
as
people?
personnel?
It's not personnel.
Enough for people.
I mean, it's not an employee of the district.
We've made our case, Chris. What's
Yeah.
the verdict?
I agree with Mr. Hudson. It's not a personnel matter, so it can be any time of the day.
Okay.
I'll have a 5 o'clock to 6 o'clock conflict at work, but I can get here at 6 that
We could do a
night.
6, yeah.
And I'll be flying back from Atlanta that day. I don't know what time I'll be back yet, so.
The later the better then.
Yeah.
Well, this is one of those deals where it won't require a huge presence for us to do our work. We'll just get together and do it. But
Your assumption, if I didn't read through all of it,
Sorry.
is that we would, depending on how many applications there are, maybe whittle it down to a number that we'd want to actually have a conversation with later in the month.
yes, and that's what I had July 18th through 26th for interviews. Now, we may be able to do that on the earlier side, and we do have an early board meeting that month. If we needed to, we could have a little time associated with that board meeting. And we certainly could, make the appointment earlier than July 29th. But I think that at the very least, that gives us a little more than a week to schedule interviews, and hopefully we would be able to do that. I can't
No,
remember how we did them last time. Did we do them all on the same day? I can't.
We did.
Yeah.
We
yeah,
did? Okay.
Yeah.
All together.
And I fly out on the 20th, so I'd rather have it sooner than later, but if I could participate by
Oh, yeah,
Skype, that
sure.
would be doable.
Well, Bob, when are you gone? The 20th through what?
20th, yeah.
Through what date?
Oh, gosh, through August 3rd.
But the 16th wouldn't be the
Through August
interview.
3rd.
No, that's just a kind of a
Okay. it's,
screening, if you will.
Identify the candidates, and then so we'd set up a second.
We might try to do it earlier, then we'll.
That'd be
we'll-
great
we'll
for
do
me,
what we
yeah,
can,
if we could, yeah.
The next week would be the interviews.
Or,
We had,
Is that
there
what
were,
you're
there were 15, I'm thinking it was 15 or 16 people who submitted. There were a couple that weren't particularly serious. I mean, crayons and maybe some illustrations of their favorite board members or something. I think we interviewed 4 or 5.
probably 5, that's what I remember.
I just think in deference to the summer, we want to give, because Bob isn't the only person who's going to be away in July, so I think we want to give people a chance to schedule their interviews too.
Yeah. Okay. All right, well, maybe we'll shoot for July 16th at 6-ish, maybe is 6:30 better?
Probably at
6:30?
5 to 6.
Tim's confident. Okay, so if that's good, then I don't believe we have any more business unless we need to discuss something else with regard to this. Are we okay? All right, with no further business before the board, we will be adjourned. Can't get that out.